I used to run a repair shop out on Southwestern Street in Amarillo, Texas. Nothing fancy. Just an old converted garage with 2 bays, 1 workbench, and a counter I built myself back in 2008. I fixed up radios, antique CBs, weather scanners, stuff that only truckers and preppers ever seem to care about. I like that kind of work. Quiet, technical, not too social. People came in when they needed something, not just to make small talk. I'm not really the small talk type. Not anymore. The only reason I'm sitting here now, broadcasting on a rig I rebuilt from spare parts, is because something's happening, something big, and nobody's talking straight about it. There's no official channel, no local station warning people, not even a damn emergency siren. But I'm telling you, if you're hearing this, and you live anywhere between the Texas Panhandle and eastern New Mexico, you need to pay attention. Something real just went down, and it didn't start with an announcement. I was awake around 3 in the morning, not sleeping much these days. Made a sandwich in the kitchen, cold roast beef on wheat, and was watching my dog twitch in her sleep when my phone buzzed with one of those emergency alert tones. It wasn't for weather, it wasn't even labeled. Just a gray bar with black letters. National security incident. Shelter in place. Await further instruction. I didn't even get a second one. No follow-up. The TV didn't cut in. Local stations stayed on their usual nonsense. I thought maybe it was a glitch, or something only a few towers pushed out. But then I noticed it. This low, steady hum in the sky. At first, I thought it was wind pushing against the windows, but it didn't change pitch. Didn't shift. It was engines. Big ones. I stepped outside onto the porch. Air was dry, not much breeze. It was dark out, no moon. But above me, past the clouds, I could make out the blinking red lights of aircraft. Not 1 or 2, a whole column of them. At least 8. The hum vibrated through the sidewalk. Then a second wave passed over. They weren't flying high either. Commercial altitude, maybe a little lower. And they weren't commercial jets. No markings, no tail flashes, just this long, coordinated sweep heading east by northeast, toward Oklahoma. I watched them go, standing there with my sandwich still in hand. I looked down the street and noticed a couple of my neighbors had come out too. Nobody said a word. Just squinting up like they were trying to convince themselves it was normal, but it wasn't, and deep down I think we all knew that. The power went out at 4:23. No storm, no wind. Just flicked off. Street lights, porch lights, everything. My neighbor across the street yelled something about his generator not starting. I went back inside and started pulling gear out of storage. An old marine battery, inverter, shortwave set, solar crank radio. Stuff I had kept in the back room. Figured if something was going down, I wasn't going to sit around in the dark and wait for Facebook rumors. And sure enough, once I got the scanner running, I started picking up voices. Some local sheriff bands, but most of them weren't ours. It was weird. Some of it was encrypted, but a few open frequencies were full of chatter. Call signs I didn't recognize, units referencing grid coordinates, not street names. Phrases like, Delta 4 advancing through Corridor Alpha, or Command, fire mission complete, pushing to Sector 11. Not local police talk. Not even American radio protocol. No stateside agency uses that language in clear. And the accents, some were definitely English, but not from around here. One voice sounded Eastern European, clipped and robotic. I listened for about 30 minutes, writing things down, trying to figure out where these units were operating. One said, Highway 287. Secure, air assets inbound. That's our main artery, cuts right through Amarillo. If someone was securing it, that meant they weren't planning on asking permission. Around 5:15, I called my older brother Dan. He's got a place north of Pampa. He picks up after a couple of rings, whispering into the phone like he's being watched. Told me he saw 5 dark trucks roll through his property line about 10 minutes earlier. No plates, no agency logos. Just flat black military-style vehicles. Said he thought they were National Guard at first, but then he noticed their boots and their weapons. Dan served overseas in the late 90s. He knows the difference. He said they weren't American. They moved in a staggered formation, checking their flanks like they were in a hostile zone. One of them stopped and scanned his barn with a thermal scope. Then they drove off toward a neighbor's field. Dan didn't follow. He just locked up, turned off all the lights, and told me he and his wife were bugging out by sunrise. I haven't heard from him since. By the time the sun came up, Amarillo was different. People weren't panicking yet. There were no mobs, no fires, nothing like that, but you could feel it in the way folks moved. Nobody lingered. Nobody talked. The convenience store by the railroad tracks had a line out the door for propane tanks and cashback transactions. One of the clerks, a kid who used to hang out at my shop, whispered that he saw soldiers at the Tyson plant. Real ones, not the guard. Tan and gray camo. No flags. Just black unit patches with that same weird diamond symbol someone else described earlier. Blue triangle inside a white vertical bar. Not something we use. I headed west towards Sonsi, where I used to get parts, and saw the strangest thing. A black van parked behind a shuttered barbecue joint. 4 men standing outside, not looting, just watching traffic. One of them had a headset and the others were scanning rooftops with binoculars. No badges, no state police vests, just tactical gear and rifles with weird curved magazines. Not AR-15s either. Looked more like Czech VZ-58s or some offshoot. One of them saw me staring and tapped his chest twice. I didn't wait to see what that meant. I turned right and disappeared down a side street. That's how I ended up back at Buck's Radio Shack, the place I used to work part-time when I was 16. The storefront's been closed for years, but the door was cracked open. Somebody had been inside. I found an old transceiver still mounted to a shelf, running off a backup UPS. It was set to an emergency monitoring band, but not broadcasting. Just a hiss of static. I slid in, checked the antenna line, cranked the gain, and switched to broadcast mode. I started talking. First to myself, then to whoever else was listening. I've been on ever since. I don't have a station name or a frequency I trust enough to repeat twice, but if you're hearing me, I'll be staying on air as long as this thing holds up. This isn't a local power outage. This isn't just Amarillo or Pampa or Borger. This is bigger, something coordinated. No announcements, no demands, no shots fired on Main Street, but it's happening. We are being occupied. That's the only word I have for it right now. I'm not here to scare anyone. I'm not reading from some conspiracy playbook. I've lived in this city my whole life, and I know when something doesn't make sense. What we're seeing right now isn't confusion. It's suppression. Silent arrival. Whatever this force is, they don't want chaos, not yet. They're moving deliberately, tactically, locking down routes, intersections, airports. I think they're establishing a corridor across the southern plains, maybe further north too. If you've seen something, unmarked vehicles, new unit movements, foreign languages on comms, get on your rig, record it, call in if you can. Every report matters. I'm keeping a log. If this thing gets worse, it might be the only thing we've got left to understand who's taking over our country. I'm going to start taking calls now. I've only got short range right now, but I know some of you further out have been piggybacking through repeaters that haven't been cut yet. If you're hearing this, speak up. Say your name, your town, and tell the truth. We don't have the luxury of silence anymore. All right, first voice of the day. Strong signal out of Oklahoma Panhandle. I'm patching you in.
My name's Susan Hartley. I live outside Beaver, Oklahoma, about 2 miles west of town on an old cattle road off Highway 270. I'm a high school biology teacher, or at least I was. I don't think the school's going to open again, not after what I saw this morning. I want to tell you exactly what happened because I'm still trying to understand it myself. I woke up around 5. I'm usually up by then. I live alone. My kids are both in their 20s now, one in Tulsa, the other in Denver. I haven't heard from them yet. No cell service at all. I still have a landline, and it's been dead since yesterday evening. Anyway, I got up to make coffee, and I noticed headlights in the distance, moving fast along the access road behind the creek. It's not a public road, Greg. That thing runs parallel to the old field lines and ends in a fence. I haven't seen more than a tractor on it in 15 years. But this morning there were 4 vehicles, 2 armored personnel carriers, like old Stryker type, only they were flatter. lower profile, and two black Humvees, not American, no flags. I watched them through the window with my rifle next to me. I didn't plan to use it. I just needed to feel like I wasn't completely powerless. They didn't stop, didn't knock, just passed through, turned east, and headed toward the gas station off the main highway. I followed them after they left, drove real slow. My truck's old, runs quiet. I parked behind the hill that overlooks the north edge of town. I watched them set up a checkpoint in the parking lot of that old flea market. Two soldiers with rifles, another with what looked like some kind of scanning device, like a thermal imager on a stick. They stopped 3 vehicles. One was a local farmer. I recognized the truck. They pulled him out, checked his ID, then searched the back. One of them found a hunting rifle and took it. They didn't arrest him, didn't say a word, just waved him off, but kept the gun. They're not speaking to people, not in English anyway. One of the soldiers tried to talk to a woman who approached with questions. I could hear him faintly. It wasn't Spanish. It was something else. Slavic sounding, maybe. The woman didn't understand. She kept asking what was going on, if they were National Guard or part of some emergency response. The soldier raised his rifle and pointed to her car. She got in and left. I haven't seen her since. They're moving methodically. No raids, no forced entries, but they're scanning traffic, checking rural roads. I don't think they're looking for a fight. I think they're cataloging, mapping us, figuring out what kind of resistance they'll face if this goes loud. I'm not leaving yet, but I've packed. Generator's full. I've got 10 gallons of diesel, water for 2 weeks, and a 12 gauge with a full box of slugs. I'll check back when I can.
That was Susan. Teacher, clear-eyed, careful. No panic in her voice, just concern and logic. Exactly the kind of call I hope more of you will make. That checkpoint story matches other reports I've logged. These soldiers, whoever they are, they're not kicking in doors, they're making themselves known, then watching how we respond. It's a slow grip closing. Here comes another call. Northern New Mexico this time. I'm boosting the signal on my end. Go ahead.
Greg, I don't know how long I have before this feed cuts again. Name's Kyle Mendoza. I'm a retired utility worker out of Las Vegas, New Mexico. Not the glitzy one, the real one. Small town, sits in the Sangre de Cristo foothills. My place is just outside town, west side. I got 2 dogs, an old Ford, and a habit of staying up way too late. Last night, around 2:30, my dogs went nuts. Not their usual bark at a raccoon kind of thing. This was full-blown panic. I looked outside and saw lights down the hill. At first I thought it was the sheriff's department, maybe chasing someone, but the lights were wrong. They were these low-mounted bars, not spotlights, more like filtered LEDs. I grabbed my coat, went around the side of the property, and watched from behind the old hay shed. There were 6 figures moving along the tree line. Not cops, not even close. One had some kind of handheld drone, sending it up in intervals, scanning. I could hear the thing buzz overhead. Another had a suppressed rifle, not slung, held ready. They moved like infantry, tight formation. One guy knelt at every corner, scanned, then signaled the others forward. I stayed low until they passed. When I got back inside, I cut the breakers, shut down the Wi-Fi, and disconnected the smart meter. They didn't stop at my place, but they were definitely marking homes. That's what they're doing, Greg. I'm sure of it. Cataloging occupied buildings, probably syncing to aerial data. I used to install line trackers for the county utility. I've seen the way mapping software works. They're building a live heat map of rural resistance. You hear me? Not just towns. They're scanning for who's still home and who's gone dark. You don't do that unless you're prepping for an occupation or sweep. You don't send scouts with drones and rifles to find looters. This is something else. I'm packing up tonight. There's an old service road near Glorieta Pass that still loops toward Pecos. If I can get through the burn scar and avoid the check stations, I'll be off their grid by morning.
That was Kyle, and I believe him. I've been logging in reports from New Mexico all morning, and it's the same pattern. Quiet arrivals, advanced surveillance, no immediate violence. This is shaping up to be a network takeover, not a loud one. No TV broadcast, no foreign general on screen declaring martial law. Just black trucks, masked soldiers, quiet checkpoints. If you're in a rural area, I suggest you map all exits now. Keep your engine warm. Don't wait for a warning that's not coming. All right, we got another message. This one's pre-recorded. Guy left it on a loop hoping someone would catch it. Came from the south end of Wichita Falls, bounced through a station up in Vernon. Here's his message.
This is Roger Keane. I'm an auto parts distributor. Warehouse job, mostly late shifts. I live on the east side of Wichita Falls, just a couple blocks from Shepherd Air Force Base. Yesterday evening, I watched 4 C-130s lift off at once. Big ones, full load, no lights, no tail flashes. That was around 7:30 p.m, sharp. Thought it was a drill. 30 minutes later, one of our local National Guard armories had their gates opened, not by our people. Soldiers in full gear came out, but they weren't wearing Texas patches, no American flags, just dark grey uniforms, polished helmets, and body armour with a big blue diamond on the chest. No one I talked to recognised the insignia. A few of us stuck around across the street. A woman who used to work base security said those weren't American protocols. The way they posted guards. Facing in, not out. That's foreign doctrine. Like they were guarding something inside the armory, not securing the perimeter. We tried to get a photo. One of the soldiers raised a rifle, aimed it at the car window. Not a bluff. We backed out and left. I haven't seen anyone patrolling the streets, but the base is locked down. Not by our people.
If you've seen that insignia, blue diamond, white stripe, black plate backing, log it, describe it. If you've got a photo, don't upload it to a server. Print it, save it offline. Every group uses symbols, and this one's appearing from Kansas to New Mexico. We need to figure out who's wearing it before it becomes the only uniform left on our streets. Now listen to me carefully. Something happened outside Amarillo last night. Not another checkpoint, not just another quiet convoy. This was the first time I've heard direct contact between armed locals and whatever this force is. It wasn't a skirmish. It wasn't some drunk firing warning shots at shadows. This was a real firefight. Sustained, loud, strategic. It didn't make the news. It didn't show up on Twitter. But I've talked to 3 witnesses so far, and their stories line up down to the minute. I'm going to play one of those conversations for you now. The man you're about to hear is named Warren Dillard, former Marine, lives out near Bushland, just west of Amarillo. He didn't want to give his exact location, but he had a clear view of what unfolded last night along an old service road near the rail yard. I recorded our conversation at 6:20 this morning. You need to hear what he saw.
Greg, I'm only talking because I don't want what happened out here to get buried like all the rest. I'm not interested in being a hero or some call-in cowboy. I'm telling you this so others don't walk blind into something they don't understand. Around 2100 hours, I was sitting out by the shed doing some radio tests. Sky was clear, no wind. I noticed 2 sets of headlights moving slow down the northern ridge. Old power company trail. Not used since the 2000s. I figured maybe it was some ranchers or maybe local deputies rerouting through the back. But then I heard the engine tone, low, controlled, turbocharged diesels. These weren't civvies. I slipped into the brush with my monocular and waited. There were 4 vehicles, 2 of those black unmarked 6-wheeled troop carriers and 2 support trucks with satellite dishes mounted on temporary arms. They parked in a staggered formation along the ridge, lights off. Troops dismounted. Not our people, no flags. Just the same gray-blue gear, blue diamond insignia, face shields, full comms helmets, no verbal communication. They used hand signs, tight, efficient, like they'd trained for this terrain. I was just about to head back and start a call-out when it kicked off. From the tree line below them, maybe 200 yards out, came muzzle flashes. Fast, staggered, looked like an L-shaped ambush. I counted at least 6 shooters, probably more, all semi-auto. You could tell from the rhythm. First few seconds caught the foreign patrol off guard. One of the dish trucks took 2 impacts to the side panel, exploded in flame within 10 seconds, didn't cook off fuel, but something in the electronics went. Sparks rained down the slope, and the patrol responded fast. One of their gunners returned fire with a belt-fed, sounded like a 240 or a PKM, hard to tell. Tracer rounds lit up the brush, but the ambushers weren't static. They leapfrogged in reverse, firing in coordinated bursts. One of them had a suppressed rifle, heavy caliber. Popped off 3 shots in 10 seconds, and I watched one of the Blue Diamond soldiers drop flat. Not flinch, not duck, drop, center mass, done. It lasted maybe 8 minutes. The attackers broke contact and faded north. No vehicle engines, no motorbikes. They moved on foot, coordinated, not amateurs. And the strange part, Greg, is that the patrol didn't pursue. They held position, radioed something. I saw a red flare go up, high and slow. I backed out and went back to my property line. 15 minutes later, 2 tiltrotor aircraft came in low, looked like V-22 Ospreys, but painted flat gray with no U.S. markings. They hovered, deployed ropes, extracted wounded, then lifted out. The vehicles stayed behind. Still parked there as of 5 a.m., but there's a burn scar now, and spent brass all over the ridge.
I asked Warren if he recognized the ambushers. He didn't. Said they were disciplined but not uniformed. Likely a militia unit, could be one of the civilian resistance cells that formed in the last 48 hours. There have been whispers, people trading gear, rerouting rifles, storing comms in steel barns to stay off the map. If those guys were local, they just struck the first real blow against whoever this occupying force is, and they lived to walk away. We've now got proof. Foreign forces are here, they are armed, they are entrenched, and they can be fought. That's the truth. That doesn't mean you should rush out with a shotgun and start swinging at shadows. It means you need to understand the terrain, understand who your neighbors are, and start listening carefully. The moment you hear suppression fire in your town, it's already too late to learn how to survive it. Get ready now. I've got a message recorded from a woman named Delaney. She's in Altus, Oklahoma. Works for a private agricultural lab and had access to satellite uplink until her signal was blocked late last night. She's going to explain what she saw from a drone sweep conducted just before her station lost comms.
Greg, I hope this still gets out. I'm using a stored transmission bank, so there's a lag. My name is Delaney Ridge. I'm a systems analyst at Redmont Ag Labs in Altus. My team manages field yield data and tracks water levels across irrigation districts. 3 days ago, I redirected one of our fixed-wing survey drones toward the state border, just west of Gould. Wanted to check for fire damage in the conservation fields, but what I caught on camera wasn't fire. The drone picked up 4 heavy transport convoys traveling east, flanked by scout vehicles and what appeared to be ECM towers, electronic countermeasures. You could tell from the signal distortion. One convoy peeled off toward Mangum, the others pressed north. This wasn't some military exercise. These units moved with speed and precision. All roads were cleared ahead of them, like someone had already warned traffic to stand down. The part that scared me most, Greg, was that one of the trailers was covered in thermal shielding. That's not something you see in ag transport or military fuel runs. That's what you use when you're moving sensitive electronics or advanced weapon systems, stuff that can't be exposed to electromagnetic pulses or weather. I tried to track its route through our traffic cameras. Within 10 minutes of its appearance, every working state camera between Elmer and Lone Wolf went offline. I archived the footage to a physical drive and disconnected it from the network. I've hidden that drive. If I don't get another chance to talk, remember this. They aren't just scouting terrain or checking for weapons. They're deploying advanced infrastructure. Whoever's coming isn't here for a smash and grab. They're laying roots, and we're way behind already.
Delaney's message chilled me more than Warren's firefight. Because while bullets and explosions are loud and obvious, silent logistics are the real threat. Power systems, comms jamming, black bag transports. Those are how long-term occupations begin. We're watching a ghost force move through farmland like it's already theirs. I'm telling you this now, while I still have a clear signal. If you're in a town with one road in and one road out, do not wait for someone in uniform to tell you what's safe. Start walking your own perimeter. Check your water lines. Secure your generators. Disconnect smart meters and cover any exterior-facing cameras. And for the love of God, if someone sets up shop near your land without asking, log it. Not just with a phone. Use paper, maps. Mark the time and direction. That's your world now. We're not in a response phase anymore. This isn't about holding out for some official rescue or waiting for a coordinated military pushback. If that were coming, we would have seen it already. What we're watching unfold is a full-scale disruption. And the goal isn't conquest. It's control. They're not here to plant a flag or wave in front of a camera. They're slicing through the Midwest with quiet precision, and every town that loses power or comms is another blind spot on the map. I've got a report out of Wichita, Kansas. It's bad. It's the first major city in our region that went completely dark without warning. I mean full blackout. No electrical grid, no mobile towers, no shortwave bands getting out. I've been chasing weak echoes of distress signals from amateur stations that got buried within hours of the initial loss. Most of them are gone now, except one that keeps looping the same message every 30 minutes. Grid failure. Civic control disrupted. Do not approach elevated structures. Return home. Then it cuts. Same sequence over and over. No voice, just text to speech. But one person made it out. I'm going to play you his story next. His name is Devin Moss, 31, forklift operator. Lives in Park City on the edge of Wichita's northern industrial belt. He left me this full voice log on a wideband repeater that was picked up by a guy in Salina, and it made its way to me through a shared frequency exchange. What you're about to hear is his uncut report. It's long and it's rough, but it's honest, and that's what matters.
This is Devin Moss. I don't know who I'm talking to. This might not even reach anyone, but I need to get this out in case something happens to me. I was working third shift at the Allied Warehousing Depot just off North Broadway, across from the rail spurs. It was a light night, only 3 of us on the dock. The rest of the crew had been cut because shipments weren't coming in on schedule. Most of the trains we usually receive had stopped 2 days earlier. Nobody explained why. Around midnight, the lights inside the warehouse flickered twice and cut. Backup power never kicked on. We went outside to check the transformers and saw the entire skyline was black. No traffic, no emergency lights, no aircraft, just dark. We stood in the parking lot and waited, thinking maybe it was a substation failure. Then we heard the horns. It wasn't a train. It was these short bursts, repeating tones. Not alarms, not police. Deeper, industrial sounding, echoed across the blocks like something big was scanning for movement. Then came the trucks. No headlights. Just infrared lamps, barely visible unless you were looking directly at the source. 6 of them in total, all armored, moving east to west along the bypass. We crouched behind the dock wall. 2 of the trucks had satellite dishes rotating on top, like they were trying to detect signals. One of my coworkers tried to ping his phone to see if there was any usable network left. The moment he did, one of the trucks stopped and pivoted toward our building. I don't know what they used, but some kind of high-frequency burst hit the warehouse. Our backup batteries fried instantly. My ears started ringing, like I'd been next to a flashbang. All the forklift sensors went haywire. The machines powered down. One of the trucks stayed at the edge of the lot, while 3 others broke off and began circling nearby buildings. That's when I left. I slipped through the fence behind the warehouse and started cutting through residential streets. Park City was quiet, too quiet. No dogs barking, no porch lights. Half the houses had garage doors cracked open like people left in a hurry. I saw one SUV still idling in a driveway, doors wide open, rear hatch flapping. Groceries still inside, No one around. Every third or fourth house had that same look, like someone left mid-motion and never came back. I kept heading north. Around 5 blocks up, I hit 61st Street. That's when I saw the barricade. Not homemade, military style. Jersey barriers, sandbags, lighting rigs on portable towers. The road was sealed off. At first I thought, good, maybe the guards finally doing something. But as I got closer, I saw the uniforms. Same flat gray. Face shields, no insignia besides that blue diamond. There were civilians standing at the barrier, shouting. Maybe 10 or 15 people, some with kids. One guy held up a radio, trying to get someone's attention. The soldiers didn't respond, just stood there behind the line. When the crowd tried to press forward, 2 of the soldiers raised these black devices, almost like signal jammers with rifle grips. Next thing I knew, everyone in that crowd staggered like they'd been hit with vertigo. One guy dropped to his knees and started vomiting. Another passed out cold. No warning, no shot fired, just down. I backed off and slipped through an alley. I walked 12 miles to Valley Center and found a broken-down ham repeater shack that still had power from a solar array. I'm here now, sending this out. I don't know what they're using, Greg. It's not guns. It's not brute force. They're cutting off our ability to communicate, disabling everything we depend on, and then moving in when we're too blind to coordinate. Wichita is lost. It's not burning. It's not under siege. It's just dark and silent, like someone pressed mute on a city of 400,000 people.
Devin didn't leave a return contact. We're trying to trace the repeater signal back through the daisy chain, but it's slow going. If you're listening, Devin, thank you. Your report confirms what others were afraid to say. This isn't an invasion in the traditional sense. It's a suppression grid, electronic warfare, tactical silence. They're not here to occupy with brute strength. They're here to blind us first, then flood in when no one is watching. And that brings me to the second half of tonight's story. There was an attempt yesterday to retake a seized National Guard armory outside Enid, Oklahoma. I've been sitting on this until I got confirmation from a second source. The details are messy, but here's what I know. A group of former military veterans, about 16 men and women, all between the ages of 35 and 60, planned and executed a coordinated strike against a patrol unit occupying the north gate of the Enid Armory. The plan was to cut power to the motor pool, breach the east perimeter, and secure weapons inside the supply depot. They had support from local utility workers who mapped out underground cabling and water mains. They planned the breach to coincide with a scheduled test pattern shift observed over the previous 48 hours. It was clean, smart, surgical. They moved in under cover of the darkness, used cold plasma torches to cut through the fencing, and reached the first 2 structures without being seen. The breach went bad around 0300 hours. Motion detectors tied into an unknown external system picked up the movement, not on-site gear. Satellite fed or relayed from something mobile. Within 30 seconds, the patrol units responded with indirect fire. Not bullets, not mortars, something else. One survivor described it like this. It sounded like a microwave humming through concrete. Then everything got blurry. My ears popped, my teeth hurt, and my legs went weak. One guy passed out. Another screamed until he blacked out. No flash, no explosion. Just pressure and pain. Half the team retreated. The others never made it out. The surviving 4 were pulled out by civilian contacts and are now scattered across northern Oklahoma, regrouping and trying to make sense of what hit them. Whatever weapon system was deployed at Enid, it wasn't American. It wasn't anything we've used in known combat theaters. This is something new. And the fact that they're already using it against resistance cells means they're not afraid of escalation. They're testing responses, marking red zones, adapting faster than we are. It was only a matter of time before that quiet invasion turned loud. I told you last night about what happened in Wichita. I told you how they shut it down. No fire, no force, just silence and sickness. That changed this morning. Around 0600 hours, everything shifted. Something new happened. Something they didn't expect. There was a strike in the north. Full engagement. I'm talking tanks, air support, heavy artillery. The real thing, not resistance, not locals with hunting rifles. This was a fight, military grade, and it didn't come from our side. It started outside Fort Riley, Kansas. Fort Riley's not small. It covers over 100,000 acres and is home to the 1st Infantry Division. Or it was. For days now it's been quiet. No movements, no announcements, no recorded transmissions, just blackout. Rumors said it was evacuated. Some said it was seized early. Turns out neither was true, at least not entirely. A convoy broke out of Fort Riley just after first light. Eyewitnesses confirm it included at least 3 M1 Abrams tanks, 2 Bradley fighting vehicles, and a convoy of Humvees with gun mounts. They rolled east through Junction City, opened fire on a column of foreign armor positioned near the Milford Reservoir Bridge. These weren't soft vehicles. They were tanks, too, foreign build. No American tags, no NATO shapes. Shorter turrets coated with modular armor. T-90 variants, most likely. Modified. Supported by wheeled anti-air units and rotary wing gunships. The kind that carry twin-barreled 23mm cannons and are designed to suppress ground infantry in under 10 seconds. That kind. I spoke to a man named Carter Reeves. He's a retired Army mechanic who lives out near Keats, not far from the Kansas River. He and his son watched the entire engagement unfold from the hill behind their farm. He patched into this broadcast using an old civilian UHF rig. His voice was clear. You'll hear it now. And when you do, understand that what he saw isn't a rumor. It isn't some dramatized internet post. It's war. And it's here.
This is Carter. I've lived here 32 years. Served at Riley back in the early 2000s. I've seen training ops, armor drills, artillery testing. Hell, I've even seen air-to-ground live fire in the range zone. Nothing I've ever seen looked like what rolled through our hills this morning. At 0552, I was prepping the field pump. Our irrigation lines were running low pressure. Then I heard the rotors. Low. Real low. I ran to the barn, got eyes on the North Ridge, and saw the silhouette of 2 foreign choppers. Not Apaches. Shorter noses. Flat black camo. Looked like Han derivatives, probably Mi-35S with upgraded avionics. They flew west over Highway 57, heading toward the base. 10 minutes later, that's when we saw the tanks. American ones. Real ones. There were 3 of them. M1S. Same model I used to work on. I could see the thermal shrouds on the barrels and the reactive armor on the side skirts. They were hauling hard, full speed, kicking up dirt and road chips like it was a trail run. Behind them came 2 Bradleys and at least a dozen Humvees, maybe more, most with soft tops removed and mounted 50 cal machine guns exposed. They weren't patrolling. They were hunting. The tanks took position on the hill east of the reservoir bridge. That's when the foreign armor showed up. They came in from the tree line. 6, maybe 7 tracked vehicles. Could have been T-90S, but the turrets were different. Looked like updated fire control systems, sloped glacis plates, high muzzle brakes. One of them fired first. The sound cracked the air like someone snapping rebar in your ear. Shell hit just left of the lead Abrams. Threw up a 20-foot column of earth. Missed. Barely. Our boys responded immediately, no waiting. First M1 fired twice in 6 seconds. Second shot punched through the foreign tank's front plate. The whole thing lit up. Turret popped loose. That's not something you fake, Greg. That was a kill shot. After that, everything erupted. The Bradleys flanked south, using the tree line for cover, and the Humvees laid suppressive fire into infantry units that tried to cross the west bank. I counted at least 3 missile trails from the choppers. Looked like ATGMs, probably 9 M120 Atakas. They hit the lead Humvee column, scattered them. 2 trucks caught fire. But then our boys returned fire from the Bradleys. Tow missiles from rooftop launchers. First one missed. Second one clipped the tail of a chopper and sent it spinning. It slammed into the hill near the silo station. Debris went everywhere. And then,
Carter paused. His voice got quieter.
the sound changed. Not gunfire, not engines. Something higher. I looked up and saw two jets cutting across the sky from the southeast. Not ours. Sleek frame, Delta wingtips, painted in deep navy with that damn blue diamond on the tail. They released guided munitions at high altitude, probably laser or GPS, hit the bridge and the tree line. Precision strikes. 2 of the Bradleys were gone in seconds. The rest of the convoy scattered. But it wasn't a retreat. It was a regroup. The M1S repositioned behind the eastern berm and kept returning fire. One of them rotated and dropped 2 rounds directly into the hillside, where I'd seen enemy infantry gathering earlier. I don't know how many died there, but the hillside stopped moving after that.
That's Carter's account. He stayed up on the ridge until the firing stopped. He says by 0800 hours, the smoke had mostly cleared. There were bodies in the grass, and one of the Abrams sat still, hatch open, no movement. The other 2 had retreated east. He didn't see where. He's still on his land, radio off most of the day, checking the skies. He says if anyone comes looking, they better be wearing the right patch. That battle is now being completely erased from digital records. No news coverage, no satellite maps updated, nothing in state databases. The only trace we've got is Carter's report, 2 amateur drone captures uploaded before the network went down, and a few encrypted traffic bursts caught on wideband that mentioned target resistance units at Grid 42 Echo Foxtrot neutralized. Echo Foxtrot was the field designation for the hill near Milford Reservoir. That's what they're calling it, a neutralized resistance unit. I call it the first real win we've had because despite the airstrikes, despite the losses, we struck back and we landed hits, not protest signs, not slogans. Firepower, real steel, and they felt it. It's strange what a single engagement does to people. I've got a dozen messages sitting in my queue now. Folks I haven't heard from since the first blackout. Some are just voice blurts. Short, panicked check-ins. Others are longer, clearer. People are finding the courage to fight again. Maybe it's because they saw tanks on their side. Maybe because they heard something that sounded like American steel roaring across their town again. Or maybe because, for a moment, it wasn't just about surviving. It was about striking back, choosing the terms of engagement. But before I get to the bigger news, I want to give you something that helps you understand where things stand now, nationally. I've been piecing together fragments from other amateur broadcasts, encrypted satellite pings, and old weather relay towers that haven't been shut down yet. I've spent the last 4 hours cross-referencing timestamps and signal routes. What I'm about to tell you isn't hearsay. It's what we know, or at least what's left to know. First, the blackout map. As of 12 hours ago, these areas are completely offline. Wichita, Kansas, Tulsa and Norman, Oklahoma, Shreveport, Louisiana, Lubbock, Texas, and everything west of the I-35 corridor from Denton up to Emporia. That means no confirmed digital comms, no cell towers, no wideband radio. In those places, you're either getting information face-to-face or you're sitting blind in the dark. Military presence has been confirmed in at least 23 counties across 5 states. Uniforms are consistent, flat gray, modular armor, faceplates with blue diamond insignia. Units appear to be mixed in composition. Some speak fluent English. Others don't speak at all. Civilian reports suggest multiple languages in the field: Russian, Serbian, Mandarin, Pashto. That doesn't mean they're officially state actors. Not necessarily. What it likely means is we're looking at a coalition or contracted force, hired, trained, multinational. Their command structure is rigid, but not slow. They adapt fast. Local militia strikes in Arkansas have already resulted in hardened patrols and drone deployments. At least 2 bridge demolitions in Missouri were countered within hours by airlift deployments and prefabricated crossing setups. That's the scary part. They don't just arrive with gear, they arrive with infrastructure. which means this has been in motion longer than we knew. A lot longer. We used to talk about foreign cyber warfare as the next battleground. Nobody ever thought they'd follow it with boots and tanks, but here we are. And I want to make something clear. If you're still waiting for a televised press conference to confirm this is an invasion, you're wasting time. Nobody's coming to your screen to explain it. The networks are dead. The White House hasn't been on camera in 72 hours. What we have instead is this. Signals stitched together by survivors, techs, soldiers, farmers, civilians, all trying to figure out how the hell we take our land back. Now here's the real story I wanted to tell you tonight. There was a fire in Gainesville, Texas. A massive one, bright enough to be seen from the outskirts of Denton. But it wasn't a random fuel depot or a misfire. It was a rail yard, targeted, breached, and burned. And not by accident. I've confirmed this with two separate sources. This was a coordinated sabotage operation. The Gainesville freight yard had been seized 5 days ago by foreign units moving north out of the Dallas suburbs. We didn't hear about it immediately because Dallas itself had already gone dark. Complete media silence. But Gainesville was quieter. Smaller footprint. They turned it into a logistics point, rearming convoys and staging armored vehicles for deployment across the Red River corridor. Locals saw trucks rolling in every few hours, flatbeds with covered tanks, containers marked with strange codes, some Cyrillic, some numeric, some blank. But last night, just after 1 a.m, a team of saboteurs breached the east fence line. No gunfire, no alarms. They moved low and fast, probably using thermal dampening gear and jammers. I'm told they planted charges in 4 locations. The fuel depot, the munitions cache A, the locomotive supply staging zone, and the auxiliary control hub. They left quietly. The whole yard went up 15 minutes later. I spoke with someone who was close enough to see it unfold. He didn't want to give his name, but he told me this. It wasn't panic. It wasn't chaos. It was precision. They hit what mattered and let the fire do the rest. Flames spread through 43 containers. 3 armored vehicles exploded in secondary blasts. The shockwave shattered windows 5 blocks out. And within 40 minutes, every power signal and relay uplink in that grid went offline. Not because of the fire, because someone cut it from inside. That's what you need to understand. This wasn't random. This wasn't angry civilians throwing Molotovs. This was professional, trained, surgical. Which tells us something very important. There are people out there, organized, embedded, who aren't just surviving. They're fighting. They're choosing their targets. And they're hurting the enemy in ways that matter. Now, before you go thinking this is the moment the tide turns, I want to make it clear we're still outgunned. This isn't the third act of a movie where the good guys charge in and reclaim the map. What this is proof. Proof that their machines can be broken. Their columns burned, their signals cut. That's where we start. A lot of people are asking the same thing now. Why here? Why now? Why the central U.S. and not the coasts or the capitals? The answer's in the logistics. The plains are flat, open, full of infrastructure. Roads run straight. Rail lines cut deep. You control the middle, you control the movement. Take Kansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, and Texas. And you've got a launch platform for everything east or west. It's not about politics. It's about terrain. If you think you're in a safe zone because you're not hearing air raids or seeing tanks, think again. Silence is part of the tactic. They want you docile, distracted, comfortable until the roads behind you are cut. And then it'll be too late. So whatever you're doing, prep faster. Secure your food. Harden your shelter. Check every tool, every wire, every vehicle you depend on. And start building relationships with people you trust. Because you're not going to make it alone. I know it's hard to hear that. I'm not saying it to scare you. I'm saying it because I've seen too many people fall into that pattern already. Sitting quiet, staying passive, assuming someone else is handling it. They're not. And the longer you wait, the fewer choices you'll have. We're already past the first wave of takeover. The information war ended when they shut down our networks. Now we're in the logistics phase. That's the hard part. It's where people start disappearing, not with fanfare, but with quiet knocks, black vans, and blinking towers that no one questions until it's too late. I've been logging dozens of confirmed reports from the Ozarks this week, between Missouri and northern Arkansas. For a while, that whole region stayed off the map. Mountains, trees, patchwork towns, real backcountry. Hard to scan, hard to lock down. That made it one of the last free zones for resistance activity. Groups were forming out there. Small ones, well-armed, using caves, fire roads, even old mining shafts to move quietly and avoid detection. But then something shifted. It started with the drones, not the big ones. Not the Predator-type aircraft you'd see in desert operations. These were smaller, tri-rotor designs built for hovering and precision movement. Black bodies. Thermal payloads. Noise suppression. Nobody knows what factory made them. Could be modular. Could be repurposed from something else. But they weren't scanning for buildings or roads. They were scanning for body heat. Now I'm going to play you a message I got from Clay Bishop. He was part of one of those groups, a scouting crew operating west of Mountain View, Arkansas. They'd been laying low for 6 days, monitoring the roads, passing intel to a broader group scattered across abandoned ranger stations. He sent this 2 nights ago, before contact with his unit was lost. What he says here, you need to hear it exactly how he told it.
My name's Clay Bishop. I used to run a sawmill north of Leslie. Real small outfit. After the blackout started, a couple of us from the area pulled gear together, linked up with a few ex-National Guard types who stayed behind. We didn't call ourselves anything. No names. Just a loop of people trying to keep their land free. We moved into a cave system near Gunner's Hill. It's dry. It's hard to see from the air. And you can move around without popping on infrared if you stay deep. On day 4, we spotted a convoy moving north up Highway 65. Looked like 6 trucks. They were escorting 2 APCs with external power modules. Generators strapped to the side. Those weren't troop carriers. They were signal nodes. We think they were testing field network deployments, sending data to air assets. We didn't touch them. Just recorded movements and kept to the ridge. No noise. No visible heat signatures outside the rock. But on day 6, it changed. Around midnight, we heard what sounded like a storm moving above us. Trees shaking, branches breaking. But there was no wind, no weather pattern. Then came the whine. Low, electrical, mechanical. One of the guys said it was the sound of counter-rotating blades. I'd never heard it before. A drone dropped straight down above the mouth of the cave. Didn't fire, didn't light up, just hovered. 2 minutes later, the first burst hit. A small charge. Maybe thermobaric. Designed to suck the air out, not collapse the tunnel. They were trying to force us out. We moved through the secondary exit, but another drone was waiting. Smaller. Moved like it had range-finding LiDAR. It launched 2 darts, quiet, sharp. One tagged Rick in the leg. He went down screaming. His skin started to blister immediately. No blood, just heat. Like it cooked him from inside. We split. 4 of us got clear back to the tree line. I don't know where the rest went. The drones didn't follow. They just marked the site, hovered, and backed off. Then, an aerial flash. Looked like a signal flare, but didn't land. Just pulsed once overhead and disappeared. I think it marked the whole area for follow-up. We didn't go back.
Clay's voice cuts off there. We haven't heard from him since. I don't know if he's alive. I hope he is. But I share that with you for a reason. Because that cave wasn't on any digital map. It wasn't visible from the road. The people in it were careful, disciplined. They moved with no devices, no trace, and they still got found, tracked, flushed. That's what we're facing now. Technology deployed for precision suppression. You're not going to see squads with rifles knocking down your barn door, not unless you're already surrounded. What you're going to see first is movement in the sky, a signal loss, a flicker in your generator, then maybe silence, and then maybe nothing at all. I had a man from Tennessee call in an hour ago. Said his county's been stripped of every working antenna. He used to maintain the emergency services tower near Copper Hill. Said a foreign unit arrived last week and told the locals it was being shut down to avoid interference during recovery operations. That's the language they're using now. Recovery. Not invasion, not occupation. Recovery. Like they're picking up a dropped toy, not burying entire communities. That same man told me something else, that the water treatment facility just outside Benton had its control systems rerouted to an external node, not locally maintained, not accessible to city engineers anymore. They couldn't flush lines or test chlorine levels without getting a signal from a new tower built 40 miles south on restricted ground. He said the water was safe for a day. Then it started to taste strange, metal-heavy, bitter. The city shut it off. People panicked. No riot. Just mass confusion. Dozens left town trying to find bottled reserves. No one knows if they made it. This isn't just military anymore. This is infrastructure sabotage. Coordinated, deliberate, and it's working. You lose clean water, you lose stability, you lose communication, you lose memory. And that's the point. They don't need to occupy you with soldiers if they can occupy your systems. They can choke your cities without ever firing a bullet. So here's what matters now. From everything I've pieced together, there are 5 critical asset types they've been targeting. Comms, water, fuel, transit, and food. That's their disruption curve. Take down 3, the 4th collapses on its own. The 5th, food, is the slow one, the one that breaks you from the inside out. The others move faster. So you need to start working backwards. Reclaim what you can, reinforce what's still yours, and isolate the weak spots before they're used against you. A woman from outside Louisville sent me a handwritten letter via a drone courier system still running rogue missions. She says her neighborhood banded together after the cell towers dropped. They printed walkie-talkie instructions, distributed them on foot, and set up hourly check-ins using rooftop mirrors and hand signals. They planted gardens in backyards, broke down fences to combine resources, and use a whistle code now, 3 short, 1 long, for any vehicle not known to the block. She said they're scared, but they're steady, and that matters. Because what's happening now in the East, there's no steady. Not anymore. Everything from Columbus down to Nashville is fragmenting. I've been chasing fragments, partial comms, dead air recordings, half-fried hard drives with voice logs dumped onto them in a rush. No big event started it. No bombs falling on buildings, just a ripple. And then everything came apart. Let's start with Ohio. I don't have confirmation from every county, but I've got enough. Columbus is gone. Not physically, buildings still stand. But as an operating city, it's finished. There are no radio signals coming out that haven't been scrambled, no power grid that hasn't been shut down at the substation level. Whatever civil authority was left there either evacuated or folded. We think it happened sometime between 0200 and 0500 hours 2 days ago. Not with fighting, with desertion. I spoke with a man named Ellis Nolan. He was a bus mechanic in Columbus before the collapse, stayed behind when most of the government workers left. His shop had a backup diesel tank, so he ran an old emergency generator off the back bay. Kept his comms alive longer than most. Said the first sign something was wrong came when the fuel supply routes dried up. Not slowed, dried. Trucks stopped arriving entirely. No warning, no delays, just gone. He told me this in a single stream of consciousness burst. I had to cut noise reduction filters just to hear it right. He'd been recording into an analog deck for 20 hours straight when his signal finally bounced out on a repeater tower near Circleville.
Greg, I'm telling you, we didn't even get a phone call. No FEMA truck. No guard unit. We just kept showing up to work thinking it would come back. Then one day, the manager stopped showing. Phones are out, power's down. I got half a diesel tank and one flashlight left, and my street hasn't seen law enforcement in 6 days. That blue diamond symbol? Saw it painted on a van 2 days ago, parked under the Broad Street Bridge. Nobody inside, no one around, just the van, like it was waiting. You know what finally made me close shop? Wasn't the looters, wasn't the dark. It was when I saw the buses getting driven away. Not by our people. They had helmets, visors, some kind of scanning device they were waving through each one. I watched them line up 6 of them, those long bendy ones from downtown, and drive them out in a straight line. I followed on foot, about half a mile back. They took them to the fairgrounds. I saw tarps go up, saw floodlights come on. Then I left. I think they're using them as processing units, portable centers, mobile holding pens. That's what they'd be perfect for. Wide floors, central HVAC. You don't need a jail if you've got rolling ones already made. That's what scared me, Greg. Not what they broke, what they reused.
Ellis didn't say where he went after that. His signal faded the next day. But I keep thinking about what he said. It tracks, with reports coming out of Dayton and Cincinnati. More vehicles being repurposed, not just destroyed. Garbage trucks converted into barricade haulers. School buses with reinforced siding. Even delivery vans re-outfitted with internal cages and external mesh. This isn't destruction. It's adaptive control. A takeover that's already decided what infrastructure matters and what doesn't. Meanwhile, further south, Tennessee's starting to collapse under its own weight. I've got voice packets from old ham stations outside Gallatin and Murfreesboro. One guy, Devin Knox, said it best.
It's not about who's here anymore. It's about what's missing. Once the state line stopped meaning anything, once we lost power and food delivery at the same time, the only thing left was silence and dust.
He said trucks started being ambushed at checkpoints, stolen not by the invaders, but by desperate civilians trying to keep their families fed. And that's the next phase we're seeing now. People turning on each other, not out of hatred, but scarcity. Real scarcity. The kind where you see another man carrying a 5-gallon jerry can and you wonder if you could live longer if he didn't. I'm not here to lecture about morals. I'm here to warn you. This is the moment. The one where communities either hold or break. Where you either stay organized or you splinter into armed caravans looking for any place still lit. Now here's the part that surprised me. Something I didn't expect. In the middle of all this collapse, there's a new network forming. Underground. Literal and figurative. It's not military, not government, it's barter, trade, parallel supply lines operating in what used to be old mail routes, river ferries, even Amtrak side rails. I've seen it mentioned across at least 20 different frequency logs. They call it the loop, and it's growing. One of the relay stations near Asheville picked up the first full manifest I've seen. It was printed on thermal paper, rolled up inside a vacuum-sealed bag. It listed stops across West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, down into Georgia. Items marked in shorthand: fuel, seeds, antibiotics, ammo, comms gear. Each item paired with a cost: bartered goods, hand service, or protection. It's not a clean system. There's danger. Bandits hit one of the routes outside Lexington and wiped out a supply team. But the fact that it's happening at all, that people are risking that much to move resources without firing a shot, means we're adapting. Not fast enough, but we are. I've been trying to find someone directly involved with the loop. It's hard. They don't broadcast, they don't post. But a woman near Charleston left a message on a band used by River Scouts. She didn't give her name, just called herself Echo 8. Her voice was calm. Tired, but calm. I'll play a clip from her recording.
If you're receiving this, you're inside the loop's range. We're not fighters. We're movers, carriers. If you take from us, we cut you out. If you trade fair, we keep you on the chart. No flags, no demands. We only ask one thing. Don't talk about us on open air. Don't give us away for likes or radio fame. You can tell stories later. Not now, just trade. Stay off the grid. And when the roads fall quiet again, we'll still be there.
I respect that deeply. And I'm not giving away their locations. What I will say is this. If you find a map marked with hand-drawn circles and dotted arrows between towns you don't recognize, don't throw it away. That's not some scavenger's doodle. That might be your lifeline. And if someone offers you seeds instead of bullets, don't scoff. Take them, grow them, guard them like gold. The fall of Columbus isn't the end, but it's a threshold, a warning. Big cities can collapse without fire or force, just absence. One by one, we're learning how much we took for granted, how many systems were just one delivery, one relay, one night of silence away from falling apart. When it happened, we all pictured the end as loud. Sirens, helicopters, bright flashes, but that's not how it's gone. It started with the grid dimming, then the fuel pumps running dry. It went quiet. And in that quiet, we realized that the worst part of collapse isn't when things burn. It's when nobody shows up to fix them. That's when people start reaching for more than just hope. They start looking to each other. That's what I want to talk about tonight. In dozens of small towns across Kentucky, Alabama, Georgia, and the northern rim of Florida, people have stopped waiting. And I don't mean panicking, I mean organizing. We've entered the phase where normal folks, people who used to keep their heads down and mind their own business, are starting to form something that resembles local governance again. Not by appointment, not by vote, but by necessity. They're claiming street corners and parking lots, building human fences out of trust and shared effort. I've heard 36 variations of it in the past 24 hours alone. It starts small. A church opens its doors and repurposes its food bank into a community depot. 2 blocks over, a mechanic clears out his garage, lets people bring in whatever tools or parts they've scavenged. An old janitor with no family becomes the watchman because he still remembers the routines of every neighbor's dog. At first, it looks messy, but then people start showing up with walkie-talkies, then chalkboards with meal plans, then street barricades not to keep people out, but to control who comes in and how. One of the clearest examples came from a town I hadn't heard of before this, Woodbury, Georgia. Population used to be around 1,300, might be half that now, but they've done something most places haven't. They built their own supply net from nothing. I got a full letter smuggled out through a relay station in Macon. Took 2 days to reach me. But it's all here, written in clean block handwriting on ledger paper, signed at the bottom by 6 people calling themselves the Table. The letter outlines how in the first week of blackout, 29 people met inside a shuttered elementary school and made 3 decisions. 1, no one leaves town alone. 2, any product or tool that can be spared is listed on a central sheet in the gym. And 3, every child still living in town is assigned to one of 5 designated adults for daily check-ins, regardless of blood relation. They treat them like their own, no exceptions. From there, they built it out. They organized fuel patrols, 2 bikes per team, 1 radio between them. They converted a tractor into a tow rig for salvaging broken-down vehicles to strip for parts. A retired IT guy rewired the school's backup generator using copper coils he tore out of old refrigerators. They scavenged insulation from hardware stores to create cold rooms in the cafeteria, using melted ice blocks from the last functioning ice house to preserve antibiotics and meat. They don't call themselves preppers. They were never preparing for this. They're just folks who looked at the absence of order and decided they'd rather make something together than starve apart. Now here's the part that's starting to spread. After they secured food and water, after they locked down their little perimeter with road cones and sheet metal barricades, they posted someone at each access point with a clipboard. Not to keep people out, but to ask questions. Real questions. Who are you? What skills do you have? Can you help repair? Can you cook, treat wounds, translate? And most importantly, who do you know in the next town that's doing the same thing? That's how you build a network. Not with money, not with ideology, with people. Trust. Built one face at a time. And I don't think Woodbury is alone. I think it's just one of the first to admit out loud that this is our responsibility now, that no one is coming, that if we want something to survive when this is over, we have to build it ourselves, right now, with what we have, not with what we wish we had. There's another side to this I need to share, though, because not all communities are coming together like Woodbury. Some are turning inward, and the worst ones are turning hard. That's the other trend I'm seeing. Groups hoarding not just supplies, but control. We've seen town halls locked down by self-appointed militias. Not all of them bad. Some started with good intentions. But the ones that fail start the same way. They put power in one person's hands and then stop asking questions. A man from outside Greenville, South Carolina, told me his town barricaded the library and turned it into a central post. He used air quotes when he said it. At first, they handed out flashlights and soap. Then came ration cards. Then came uniformed men on the streets with badges they printed from an old laminator. When someone objected to how medicine was being distributed, one man got denied antibiotics for his kid after questioning the curfew. They dragged him out in front of a crowd and stripped his card. He was locked outside the zone 2 nights ago. No word since. The man who told me that story didn't use his name, just said, "Don't say I came from there. Just say not every fence is built to keep enemies out. Some are built to make kings feel safe." So that's the balance we're walking now. Communities are rising. And so are fiefdoms. People are learning how to barter, share, defend. But they're also learning how easy it is to slip into control when no one is watching. That's why it matters what kind of people show up at your door and what kind of person you become when no one's telling you what to do. Here's what I'll leave you with tonight. A short entry from a nurse in Arkansas. She sent it by handwritten postcard, squeezed between cardboard panels and dropped into a caravan traveling east. Her name is Nadine. She works in a makeshift shelter that used to be a gym. They've got no power, but they keep the windows open during the day and use mirrors to reflect enough light for treating wounds. She wrote,
"We ran out of antibiotics 3 nights ago, but the people kept coming. We boiled everything. We trained 2 high schoolers how to suture. We saved a man's leg by cutting the infected part clean and sealing the rest with a hot iron. He screamed, but he lived. And this morning, he helped us dig a latrine trench. We're still here. And if we're still here, then something is still worth doing."
That was the last line of the letter from Nadine, the nurse in Arkansas. And I keep reading that sentence out loud every time the signal starts to fade in this booth. Every time I lose another relay tower or a battery bank sputters out. We're still here. That's all that matters in the end. Doesn't matter how broken the country is. Doesn't matter how many maps get redrawn or flags replaced or stations go silent. What matters is that people like Nadine still dig trenches for others to use, still clean the wounds of strangers, still teach, still try. That's the only reason this isn't over yet. If you're hearing this right now, I want you to know this is my last wide broadcast. I've been operating from a basement-level repeater shack outside Amarillo for 14 days straight. This rig's running off 2 car batteries and a deep cycle solar cell that I buried behind a scrapyard. Now, I've patched together transmissions from 47 counties, mapped 7 resistance pockets, logged over 300 local collapse events. I've taken every call I could, but I can't keep this station running much longer. My panels are cracked, my antenna mast went down during the last storm, and this part of Texas isn't safe anymore. Last night I picked up an encrypted transmission buried under noise out of Fort Polk. Took me 4 hours to clean the signal. What I pulled out wasn't a news report or a troop movement update. It was a command broadcast, one not meant for us. Meant for them, for the invaders. And I'm going to read it to you now, because this is the most honest message I've heard since the day it started. Phase 5 initiated. Civilian integration threshold reached in corridors Alpha 6, Delta 2, and Foxtrot 11. Broadcast disruption is 92% complete. Mobile governance units now operational in 34 sectors. Remaining resistance clusters marked as non-priority targets unless force density exceeds perimeter protocols. Begin asset consolidation in infrastructure zones. Civilian compliance verified. Psychological containment stable. Full transition to regional stabilization protocols scheduled within 72 hours. That was it. No emotion, no flags, no mention of what came before. Just operations, corridors, zones, and civilian integration. That's what they think of you. Not citizens. Not people. Just numbers and a logistics plan. They see your house as an asset. Your town as a grid point. Your silence as compliance. But what they didn't account for, what they keep underestimating, is how much noise we're willing to make when we're backed into a corner. How fast a network can grow when it doesn't care about being seen. How powerful a voice can be when it's the last thing holding a town together. Because here's what happened in the past 72 hours that their transmission didn't mention. In the mountains outside Asheville, North Carolina, a group of former park rangers reactivated the fire lookout towers. They chained antennas to old metal water tanks, ran coaxial lines down trees, and lit up an emergency relay signal that now reaches 7 towns. They use it to coordinate fuel swaps and watch rotations. One of the towers caught a drone ping and tracked its path using triangulation. First time we've had accurate flight data in over a week. In the bayous north of New Orleans, fishermen rebuilt an airboat with a steel canopy and started ferrying food and supplies through floodplains that nobody can scan. They mark trails with reed bundles. Locals call it the ghost boat. It only travels at night and it doesn't run a light, but it hasn't missed a trip. In Cleveland, a father and daughter team pulled open an old Cold War-era civil defense shelter that had been welded shut since 1987. They found stacks of shortwave gear inside, most of it dead. But one transmitter worked. They now broadcast 15 minutes a day on a rotating frequency. No voice, just tones. It's enough for any trained operator to find the signal and get a heading. That's how we're plotting where it's still safe to travel. I even got word, quiet, careful word, that a large group of long-haul truckers broke from the seizure zones in Arizona. They avoided all major interstates, traveled county roads and fire breaks, and made it to a hidden refuel site north of Flagstaff. They've renamed themselves The Chain. If you see a flatbed with blacked-out plates and a painted white C on the driver's side door, don't approach it fast, but know it's one of ours. They're mobile, they're careful, and they've helped 5 convoys make it through zones with confirmed enemy armor. They carry more than fuel. They carry memory, routes, towns, faces, supplies. That's what this is now. Not just survival, memory, and defiance. You don't need a flag to resist. You just need a reason. So I'm going dark now. Not because I've given up. Not because I've been caught, but because I'm going to move. Not far, just enough. I'm taking the gear I can carry, and I'm heading to a town I won't name. I've already got someone there, a welder, 2 teachers, a retired nurse, a couple of kids who still know how to solder a broken antenna by sight alone. I'm going to set up a low-watt relay and keep feeding signal into the mesh. You won't hear me on this frequency again, but if you're listening carefully, you'll hear the hum, and that'll be enough. Before I go, I want to leave you with something. Something I wrote down in the second week, before the batteries ran out the first time. Just a sentence, scratched on the wall next to my console. They cut our lines, so we became lines. They took the power, so we became the signal. You are the signal now. You're the memory. You're the resistance. Don't wait for someone in uniform to save you. Don't wait for the cities to rise. The country still exists, but it's in the hands of whoever's still willing to build, barter, protect, and record.